Hey there, Lex Babes. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new, my name is Mary and this is my vlog channel where I pretty much do whatever I feel like. And today I feel like ranting. Just joking. This is actually going to be quite the educational video. I'm just not going to take the typical route. I'm not going to rant on here. That's what my friends are for. That's what my family's for. And that is what therapy's for. And speaking of therapy, today's video is indeed sponsored by BetterHelp. If you don't know what BetterHelp is an online therapy platform that gives you access to licensed therapists in your area without you having to leave the comfort of your home. You get matched uniquely with your therapist after answering a questionnaire. You get to pick things down to the gender, the race, and the expertise level or expertise focus of your therapist. You can reach your therapist via chat, which if it's on demand, then you have to schedule that ahead of time. You can just message them whenever you want. That one is always available, and whenever they have a chance, they'll respond. You obviously have the option to do phone calls if you're not really comfortable with the video setup. They really do make it very seamless in order to take care of your mental health, but not feel like you're actually carving out all this extra time to drive, get to the therapist's office, wait, check in, sit there, all of that. So if you are about that virtual at-home life, if you've taken a pretty big hit the last couple of years, or maybe a small hit, and it's all kind of getting to the point where you feel like you need someone else's input that is unbiased, doesn't know you, and is trained to do so, definitely check out BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/M3RRY for 10% off. This is not something I'm just promoting for the sake of it. If you followed my online career long enough, you know that I have been talking about this company. I go on and on and on about them on the main channel. And yeah, I've had a long-standing partnership with them because I really do believe in what they offer, and I use it as well. This is not something that I'm just preaching. This is something that I have used. Now that that is out of the way, today I want to talk about why you should not move to Vegas. I actually made a video, I want to say 8-9 months now ago, and that happens to be the most popular video on this channel thus far, which tells me one thing and one thing only. There are many people that are looking to actually move to Las Vegas now more than ever, apparently. And while I did discuss pros and cons, I don't feel like I really went into the nitty-gritty as far as the disadvantages of living here in that video. And because I myself have been dealing with some of the frustrations of being a Nevadan, living in Las Vegas to be more specific, I decided that I need to make a whole video, a dedicated video specifically just for that topic. I've got on my What Happens in Las Vegas hoodie, just to kind of feel the mood or whatever. But yes, I am definitely going to be Petty Crocker today. And speaking of Petty Crocker, if you're new to me, I own a beauty and skincare line that I launched last year, and this color is actually from my lipstick line, and it is called Petty. So don't worry, I came prepared. I promise I'm going to get to the meat of the video. I just want to get all the shameless promo out of the way. So if you're watching this, before you go to complimenting my beautiful lips, get you some, right? If you're a guy, order one for your mom, your sister, your wife, your girlfriend, your mistress, your coworker, the lady outside at the concierge, the lady at the red light, all of that. Coffeebeauty.com, also down in the description box. Okay, I'm not gonna hold you guys any longer. Let's jump right into the video. Okay, number one, cost of living. So I discussed this as I think it was a pro in that last video. I'm not quite sure why, because for the last, I would say, year and a half, maybe even almost 2 now, the cost of living in Las Vegas has went up drastically. If you're a numbers person, this is gonna help you. We are at 36% in rent increase, and I believe 28% in mortgage. But let's focus on the rent, because that's what I talk about a lot on this channel. That 36% is double the national average. Did you hear that? Double the national average in increases is what I mean. And that only tells you one thing. Again, it's the law of supply and demand. There are many people moving here, most of which are Californians, and they are just driving the rent through the roof. It is ridiculous. It is now currently April of 2022, and you will literally be bent to find a 1-bedroom apartment at $1,300, even in a not so decent area. Okay, Seagull Suites, and I don't know if you know what that is, but they're kind of like the Motel 6 of like these areas, right? They're charging $1,000 monthly for literally like a square with one of those rooms that has like the AC that pops out from the outside. You know what I'm talking about? That retro. Literally, they don't even have central AC, right? Just to give you guys perspective on what the cost of living, even just on the rent standpoint. I'm not going to get started on everything else that's super expensive. I just want to focus on the rent. So a lot of you that have been moving here that keep saying, oh, it's so much cheaper to live in Vegas. Not really. It's not. It's no longer considered affordable to live here. Where I currently live at, the cheapest rent is $2,000. That's the start. This does not include utilities and resort fees and all the extra stuff. So just keep that in mind before you move here. Make sure you do your math correctly before you get all super happy. Again, if you're coming from like New York and LA and you're used to paying like astronomical rent, this might still be a relief for you. Although I just wish you would stop coming. I'm going to get off of that soapbox and go into number 2, which is traffic. Because of what I just told you, traffic has become ridiculous. I moved here from Houston, as I told you guys, 8 years ago, and I moved. One of the very reasons I moved was because of that. The city was getting so overpopulated, the traffic was ridiculous, it was impossible to get around. And again, if you've been to LA, you know how that traffic can be. So having all the Californians move out here, and I'm sorry that I keep focusing on Cali, because there are people that are coming here from New York, New Mexico, Hawaii, Atlanta. There are people that are coming from other cities, Utah, Arizona, but Californians are definitely at the top. I would say 80% of all the overpopulation right now is strictly from California. You cannot drive on the freeway or even on the streets without seeing more California license plates than any other state. Even Nevada. Sometimes I'm literally like putting myself up to it and I'll start counting. And I literally see more Californians on the street than I do see locals. There was a point in time where living here was a breeze. As much as we had tourist traffic from like maybe the strip and stuff, a lot of the times they're walking, it's pedestrians. But as far as cars now, because people are moving here, California license plates all over the freaking city. I know there's nothing I can personally do about it. I'm making this video if you're moving here thinking that you're making a better choice than where you currently are. I'm just trying to paint the picture for you, okay? No. Which leads me into the next thing, Indecent People. Now, this is something I think I discussed as a con in the last video. It's something that I have known about since maybe 6 months into living here. If you're coming from a city with like people that are really warm, have kind values, and you're gonna struggle in Las Vegas. And that's not to say that people don't move here from the South. I'm just saying that a lot of times what you find, and I'm not talking about the natives are great, I mentioned this in the last video, it's almost like there's a type of person that moves here. So I came here, I've said to you guys, for the city lights, because I was a night owl and I really liked being able to see the city still running while I was doing my thing in the middle of the night. So amongst other things, that was the main thing that moved me here. Once I arrived, I discovered many of the things that were great, many perks that were great, but I did not know those things before I moved. Back to the Indecent People though. It's almost like there's a subset of humans that move here, people that are running away from their current life and they want to kind of do an escape and move here and start a whole nother life, create a whole nother persona, and they really believe it. So it's gonna be very rare that you meet people that are genuine. And I'm not talking about LA in genuine, because a lot of people say people like are really fake in LA and very plastic, which I agree. I visited there thinking I was gonna move there, and very quickly realized it was not my cup of tea, ended up in Las Vegas. But that's another story for another day. The point is that the people here are living in an alternate reality, if that makes sense. And they'll drag you into it if you allow it. And obviously, haven't lived here long enough, I already can call the bullshit within like the first few sentences of a conversation. But yes, people literally move here to create a new character, and then they really believe it and bamboozle whoever they can. Now, again, just like everywhere else, there are good people. I am not trying to say that there are not good people in Las Vegas and they're not people that are decent to associate with, but I'm not gonna sit here and act like the ratio is as high as when I lived in Houston, for example. It's just a different caliber of people. You know, Houston is like oil and gas, it's medical industry, it's just decent people, like I said, I really hate to keep using that word, but people that are just earning a living, living a good life. There's obviously still entertainment, things like that, but it's not as, I suppose, full of debauchery as this city is, so it doesn't attract the same type of people. Houston's more like settle down, build a family, build stability. Vegas is like, come here, get hung up on drugs, get hung up on hookers, get blah, blah, blah. It's all of those things that people think it is. Don't get me wrong. And you will find that very quickly if you're young and hip, okay? I should put that out there. A lot of people don't know this, but Vegas is actually a retirement city. A lot of people, once they hit that age, move here. I don't know how much they're moving here now, but they used to move here because of the cost of living and just to kind of settle and live the rest of their lives, you know, in a slow pace, you know, whatever. In the suburbs, so typically, they're usually in the Hendersons. Not Summerlin so much, but they used to all live in Henderson. And if you are in areas like that, you're gonna end up with a bunch of older people that just pretty much mind their business and would be considered good neighbors. But if you're young and you wanna be like in the middle of the city or even in the suburbs, but you want like to live in a nicer community, or if you wanna live in a high rise, you're gonna run into what I'm talking about here. It's very hard to meet people that like earn a decent living. That's all I'm gonna say. Which leads me into point number 4. It changes you, right? I've been fortunate enough to not get changed just because for the most of the time that I've lived in Vegas, this is the very first time that I've actually stayed home this much. Typically, my work required me to travel, so I was gone a lot. So I didn't stay home and build bonds or like fall into experiences that I would say like jaded me. So luckily for that, I am aware of these things that I'm telling you, but I'm not jaded by them. Does that make sense? I just know that it's happening. And I'm not really crazy about, like, again, the quality of individuals that live here. But if you are easily influenced, if you are coming from, again, a life that you're running away from, Vegas is definitely the city that will change you, especially if you have vices. Even if you didn't. Everybody has a gateway drug, they say, right? Minus myself. But everybody has a gateway drug. And it'll change you. You know, you may think, oh, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to hang out with people that do. And very slowly it'll become normal to you until you decide to try it one day. And then, you know, the rest is history. Which leads me to number 5, no culture. And I've kind of touched on this here and there in pretty much every point. The city doesn't have its culture. If you're watching this and you're like a diehard Vegas fan, you're probably going to argue me in the comments. That's not really what this is about. I'm giving my personal experience, my perspective. You can take it with a grain of salt. As far as I'm concerned, the city is just the city. Vegas is just Vegas, right? It does not have culture. It's just a mosh pit of lost souls that moved from all over the country, ended up here and then like are just kind of withering, or just kind of hanging around. That's what I'm gonna call it. There's stuff to do, again, but the city does not have culture. If you know, you know. I'm not gonna go too much into detail about this one, but it's bland from a culture standpoint. Quality of life, this is a big one. Again, I've talked about like just the type of people that you run into here. Because the city is so fast-paced, because there is a lot of fast money moving here, you can make a ton of money here without being educated, without having to go the straight and narrow route. So the fact that you can make a lot of money in other informal industries, it doesn't really leave room for more formal industries like banking, like real estate, for example. This is the one that I've struggled with the most, like I said. You wouldn't believe the amount of rent I've been willing to pay and have paid only to still end up with subpar living. One, because of the greed of the owners and the builders and the management companies, but also because they simply can't find good people to work, people that are of high enough of a caliber or that are experienced enough to be able to handle high quality properties. So it does cut into your quality of life because you're constantly having to teach people how to do their job. You're paying for luxury, but you're not really getting that because of all the homeless. Again, if you're in the city, you're going to run into them so much. And I don't know why people end up where they end up. I have nothing against the homeless people. The point I'm making is that it's an eyesore, and it can be a very like anxiety-inducing experience if you're constantly being startled by like a stranger who doesn't like live there but somehow ends up there. So I know I'm kind of talking in circles here, but when I very first moved into this property that I'm at, it took us almost a year to get them to secure the building properly, despite the fact that like there's homeless literally like infested in this area, right? I heard stories like people were finding the homeless people in the sauna. They'd be up here on the rooftop just chilling. They'd be at the coffee machine getting a drink, like, because there was nothing stopping them from entering. There's actually a few of them that were living in the empty units. Like, how do you explain that? You know, again, I'm not blaming them. I'm blaming the property management company who fails to secure the building, like, accurately. And so this is probably the first, like, happening city that I could say I've lived in that you don't get what you pay for, if that makes sense. The amount of rent that I pay here, if I paid it in Houston, it's night and day. I know the quality of service I would be getting. And so that, again, it cuts into your livelihood. And again, also, like, again, extend it to even like wanting to go to the nice restaurants, right? If you're not staying in like your suburbia area and you want to go off to something nice in the city, everything is going to be within the casino. So you've got to park and go through the casino and deal with all the cigarette smoke if that's not your cup of tea. It's just, I don't know. You have to live here for you to understand, but I'm also making this video telling you to kind of tread lightly because it's not all that it seems to be. All right, the last one's gonna be weather. A lot of people think that Vegas has nice weather, I guess in comparison to like New York or places where it snows. Okay, I get that. But they don't understand how brutal the heat could be. So in the hot months, it gets very freaking bad. Also, even when it's not hot, if you're one of those people that needs rain, right? And I don't mean like, nobody likes rain all year round. Like nobody wants to like Seattle vibes, right? But what I mean is if you just kind of need that moisture, you're gonna be sick here because Vegas is super, super dry. People really underestimate how dry Vegas is. Vegas is so dry that in 8 years, I can count how many times on one hand probably, or maybe two max. But I think one because of how little I was home. I can count on how many times on one hand that it actually rained while I was here. Well, I've been here. So that's just something to keep in mind. I'm not gonna run on too much longer. Just know what you're getting into before you come here. But most of all, yes, if you are still in that age where you're still building friendships and you're building connections and things like that, definitely tread lightly because there are some characters in this town. I've kind of kept to myself, but I also believe that defeats the purpose, right? If you come to a city like this where you really just want to network, what good is it to live here if you really can't get out there and explore just because you're like wary of people, right? And if y'all want me to make story times about like some of the experience that I've had, nevertheless, of like me, you know, living a pretty quiet life, I'd love to do that. You will quite enjoy a few of them, I can imagine. Anyway, this is the end of the video. If you live here now and you agree, drop comments below, tell me why. If you disagree, share that as well. If you don't live here but you're thinking about moving here, comment below, let me know what your thoughts are and what other questions you may have. And that will be all for me today. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you on the next one. Bye.